Hello, welcome back to my haunted library and welcome to my part 2 of V.C. Andrews' The Hudson series. So the two books that I'll be discussing today with spoilers, so know that going into this video that I will be giving out some plot points, the ones I can remember, that the books are The Eye of the Storm, or just Eye of the Storm rather, and The End of the Rainbow. I really love this cover with the rainbow look. So we're going to discuss these two books today. So The Eye of the Storm, unfortunately, when I was reading it, this insert came out. And when I first looked at this, I'm like, does this really happen in the book? Like this weird scene? Like what is going on here? There's Rain holding a cracked doll with some demented woman. And then this guy flying in through the window in his pajamas. Well, it does happen in the book. At the end of the last book, the grandmother Hudson dies. She is given the majority of the estate. So we have our rags to riches story right here because she grew up in the ghetto of Washington, D.C. And now she's like 20 years old, I think, or maybe younger. She has this beautiful estate with this beautiful lake on it, and everything's going pretty well. She's planning on moving to London to continue her studies in acting and thinking about what to do, but she's also kind of taken on the responsibility of the estate, and she's not letting the wicked Aunt Victoria push her around, because Aunt Victoria doesn't like the fact that this girl from the ghetto has got not only the estate, but 51% of the family business. Rain has two half-siblings, what are Megan's children, Allison and Brody. Allison is really kind of like a mean girl type and doesn't really have much time for Rain. Brody comes over for a visit and spends a couple days, and wouldn't you know it, he confesses that he's very attracted to Rain and would like to start a relationship with her, or at least some kind of relationship with her, physical relationship, sexual relationship. And I think he's pretty drunk at this point when he broaches this, and she's like, no, we can't. But she doesn't tell him why. Doesn't say we can't because we're actually related. Not that ever stopped anyone in V.C. Andrews' story before, but that's beside the point. He gets angry and peels out in his car in the middle of the night and leaves and gets into a car accident and is killed. So we have our car accident theme coming back, which you see this often starting with the original Christopher Dollenganger getting killed in a car accident. So you see this several times throughout all of the series. And Rain blames herself for this because she didn't tell him the truth, but how could she? It's all supposed to be a big secret. Megan, her mother, loses her mind after this and ends up in a hospital. And Victoria becomes more involved in Rain's life. In fact, she starts being really nice to her. So Rain is a little suspicious of this woman, and she should be. And then we learn a little more about Jake, who is kind of the chauffeur, handyman around the estate. And he confesses to Rain that he's actually a member of the family. He is Victoria's father. So Grandma Hudson had an affair with the chauffeur, and Victoria is his daughter. And she's not actually a Hudson, really. So Rain thinks it's a good idea, and this is where Rain is a little naive, thinks it's a good idea to blurt this out to Victoria one time. And Victoria does not take this information very well and kind of, storms off. And Rain's like, well, just trying to help her out, let her know who her real father was. Okay. Well, in the meantime, Jake has bought this beautiful horse named Rain, but it's a big horse. It's like a race horse. And Rain, who has some equestrian training, starts riding this horse. Well, there's a horrible accident. One time when she's out on the trail, the horse rears because it sees a snake. It bucks her off, and she has a terrible back injury, and she ends up being paralyzed from the waist down. So this one really threw me for a loop. I was like, oh, okay, now we have our wheelchair character, which is another recurring theme. You see this character who's now in a wheelchair paralyzed or have some injury recurring in the series. Kathy's in a wheelchair for a little while, but then she gets back. Anyway, so now Rain is extremely disabled, and it's really sad because she's very young and she had all these plans for her life, and she's depressed. It really gets into the whole section of her in the hospital, and her real father from London, was expecting her to visit, and she's got to tell him what's going on, and it's just really, really sad. Victoria starts taking over her life. She hires this really nasty nurse who's, we have our traumatic bathtub scene that we see over and over again. Victoria starts to slowly lose her mind, and that is where we get this scene. Because Victoria starts to take care of Rain in the mansion with the crazy lady, and things are not going very well. Except there's one bright spot, is Rain starts to receive physical therapy from a man named Austin, young guy, who's really cute and really nice, and they start falling in love. So Austin creeps in through the window one night, and he and Rain make love. They're really into each other, and Victoria finds out and bans Austin from the mansion. Aunt Victoria is all like dolled up. She's kind of like Blanche Dubois in Streetcar. She's lost her mind. She has her hair bleached and all this garish makeup, and she's convinced she's going to go out on a date with Grant. That's his name, Megan's husband. And she thinks Rain is Megan, and you can't stop me. We're in love. She's completely gone bonkers. Austin, sensing something's wrong, he can't get through on the phone to Rain, comes to the house, and Rain's upstairs. It's kind of like in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. She can't move her legs. She's like, help. And she hears Victoria say, she's not here, and slams the door. And then we have the traumatic bathtub scene where Victoria decides to give Rain a bath, and Rain, I think she almost drowns in the bathtub. Anyway, she tumbles out, and Victoria tumbles into the bath and hits her head and drowns. And then Austin finally comes back and rescues Rain, and she goes to the hospital, and all is well. And the book ends with her discovering that she's pregnant. Even though she has her spinal injury, they think that she'll be able to have a normal pregnancy. So it does end on kind of a happy note with this couple getting together and getting married. Okay, so that was Eye of the Storm. Now we move on to The End of the Rainbow, and this is Rain and Austin's daughter, Summer, who is 16 when the book starts. And it begins with the family happily living on the estate. Rain is still in a wheelchair, but she's, has a full life with Austin and her family. And she's kind of a little bit in the background. So remember Roy, her brother, but they're not related, from DC, who was always in love with her. And she had the fling with him in London, which I'm talking about Rain here. She didn't really want to, but kind of went along with it, and he's been in love with her his whole life. That Roy is now living on the estate in a small house, one of the houses on the estate, with his wife, Glenda. Roy and Glenda had a daughter named Letitia, named after Roy and Rain's first mother, and she unfortunately died. And Glenda is kind of has never been the same since, and is a very kind of weak woman who walks around just mourning for her lost child. And Roy is not exactly happy with Harley, who's a teenager around Summer's age. I think he's a little bit older, a year or two, and he's described in the book as looking just like Kevin Bacon. So that was an image that was really hard to shake. And we see a little bit of Allison. She's back. She's kind of become more of the Fanny type of character, a little loose morals, let's put it that way. And Austin is kind of the boring, like Christopher character, the Christopher father character. So Summer goes to this music program to play clarinet and piano, I think. She meets a really fun girlfriend named Sarah. They're best friends. They room together. And there's this one very hot guy named Duncan. It's always names like that, like Duncan. And he takes an interest in Summer at a dance that they're having one hot summer night. And later he does the thing where he throws some pebbles at her window and convinces her to come out just for a walk. We'll just go for a walk. It's such a beautiful hot night. It's beautiful here. Let's just take a walk through the fields. So naively, she climbs out the window with her nightgown on only and joins Duncan for a little stroll. Well, he takes her straight to show her his new car, which turns out to be a van, and then convinces her to get in the van. And then the next thing you know, he attacks her and ends up raping her. That whole section was very shocking, actually, and very graphic for a V.C. Andrews book. I mean, not to say that they're not graphic, but I was a little bit like, whoa, he's really, he meaning Andrew Niederman, writing as V.C. Andrews, is really going there. And I was really kind of traumatized by this scene. He acts like, oh, I hope you're not going to be one of those, like, girls who likes to complain about me. You know, this kind of thing. So she's just kind of in shock. She keeps it together, so she climbs back through the window. Sarah helps her, and then she tells Sarah what happened. And they decide, you know, that they're going to tell the headmistress what happened. Nothing happens to Duncan. He just gets expelled, but, you know, he continues on, continues to do what he does. And then she misses her whole summer at camp and ends up going back to the house to tell her parents what happened. Or, well, they come to get her. And it's really, that section of the book I found really sad and scary. So Rain, there's a scene where Rain is out by the lake and talks to Summer, and she's kind of blaming herself for not adequately preparing Summer for the realities that she just experienced, that Rain went through herself, that Beneatha, the sister, she tells her what happened to her. She's like, I should have told you. I should have warned you about the Duncans of the world. And Summer's like, oh, don't blame yourself. It's okay. So during this time, and Austin's about ready to like blow a gasket. He's so angry about what happened and frustrated about the fact that this boy's not really punished adequately. Summer loses a lot of her joie de vivre. She's depressed, as you would be. Luckily, she doesn't get pregnant from this attack. So she's kind of trying to go on with her life. She and Harley are becoming closer. She tells him what happened eventually. And then Allison shows up with one of her boyfriends and some dude, and they go skinny dipping in the lake, and Allison almost drowns. There's these little vignettes thrown in through these books. Sometimes I feel like Andrew Niederman's getting paid by the word, and he's just padding out some of these scenes, because a lot of times it feels like there's not a lot of flow from one scene to the next. Like, what was the purpose of that? We don't know. Harley does not get along with Roy. Roy is really bitter because he can't be the husband he wants to be to Rain. So it's kind of like a weird situation. He's just living on the property and kind of like staring out at the mansion while his real wife, Glenda, is kind of going crazy, and he's just not there for Harley. And Harley feels it. Glenda, one night, I think is it Letitia's, the dead baby's birthday? Anyway, she ends up drowning in the lake, whether she committed suicide or just kind of wandered out and fell in the lake. You know, she wasn't well. And Roy is beside himself with guilt because he wasn't a very good husband, because he's constantly thinking about Rain. So Harley has done a little digging and has found out that he has a real father is still alive and living in a small town, and he wants to go off and find his real father and maybe have a chance to have a real relationship with him, because now that Glenda's dead, Roy is even more hostile to him. So he convinces Summer to get on the back of his motorcycle, and they're going to go run off and together without telling anyone until they get there. So they have a couple mishaps along the way. Some rednecks are following them through town. They spill the bike, and Summer hurts her ankle really bad. They go see this little family doctor, and he bandages up her ankle, tells them where they can find the dad. And this is when things get really weird in this book. And this is when we have the depiction of this crazy scene. So they ask the doctor about Fletcher, I think is the name of the father, where they can find him. And he's like, oh, you mean Buzz? And Harley's like, yeah, I guess so. I guess it's his nickname. Yeah, well, he lives right down the street in this weird octagonal house that's kind of falling apart. Harley, who's interested in architecture, tells her all about the house. He's really excited to meet his dad. So when they finally meet the father, they're both kind of surprised that he's a lot older than they thought, but they're like, okay, like he's a man in like his 60s, I guess, or late 50s. And he's living with a woman named Suze, who is a Haitian woman who is into voodoo. And she has like this voodoo room with spells and black candles and all kinds of weird things like that, which Summer finds a bit disconcerting. So Summer's finally like, look, well, I need to get home. I'm going to call my parents, that they're going to be upset that we took off, but I need to let them know that where we are. So she calls the parents, and they're like very angry, but she's like, I'll be home on the next plane tomorrow, I promise. Okay, Harley's going to stay there. Well, at one point she's snooping around into this basement, and she finds basement room and finds old moldering cardboard boxes, and she's snooping through, and she discovers that Buzz is actually Harley's grandfather, and that his real father died in an accident, I think. Another car accident? I don't remember. But anyway, he's dead. So she's like, should I tell Harley that this guy's lying to him, that he's not really his father, he's actually his grandfather, and he's married to this weird voodoo lady? And this is like a weird scene. Suze puts some sleeping potion in her dinner, and Summer gets very sick. She's going to miss her airplane, but she tells Harley the truth about what she discovered. She's got to tell him before she leaves. And so she's like, look, and he doesn't want to believe it. She's like, I'll go down to the basement and I'll show you what I found. So they go down to the basement, and they're snooping through the boxes when the door slams and they're locked in this basement. So Suze and Buzz lock him in the basement, and Suze is going to perform some kind of voodoo ritual to take the devil out of them. And at this point, the book is getting like seriously ridiculous. Buzz's wife, so Harley's grandmother, was like put in this kind of like flowers in the attic, although now it's like grandma in the basement, and they find that she has been put there by Buzz, and she leaves this diary. And I'm going to be honest, at this point, I didn't really have the bandwidth to read all through Grandma's diary. I just kind of skipped that part because it's so close to the end of the book, and I really didn't care. I just wanted them to get out of the basement. Well, Harley gets extremely ill from eating the food that Suze, the voodoo lady, prepared. It's like poisoned. Summer she's afraid to eat anything, but she's starving, and they don't know what they're going to do. They're stuck. And then, lo and behold, Roy comes crashing through the door, which you can see here in the background. He figured out from clues left behind where Harley's father was living, and asked around, and is like wrestling with Suze and pushes her aside and fights off Buzz and rescues the kids from the basement. So it ends with them back home and Roy being like a real dad to Harley, which is exactly what he needs. Harley goes off to, finds his self-esteem at last. He goes off to college and gets, I think, an architecture degree. Comes back to visit Summer when he's almost done, or when he just graduated, and they sit by the lake, and he proposes. She's the only girl he's ever loved, and she says yes. So we have a happy ending. They're going to get married, and even though they're kind of related, they're not really. So it's fine. So that was the wacky wacky story of rain and summer, and these two books that ended it were pretty nuts. But, overall, it wasn't the best of the V.C. Andrews series by a long shot, but it was entertaining. And I guess at the end of the day, is what it's all about. So let me know in the comments below if you read the Hudson series, if you would like to read it, and if you have any other favorite V.C. Andrews books or series. I would love to hear your thoughts. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for stopping by my haunted library, and I'll see you soon. Bye!